Okay, sorry for the false start. IT decided to play up as normal. So today I just wanted to go over a couple of creation ideas. So I've got some cheap paper, automated pen, rubber, colour pencil, and another type of colour pencil. One of my pencils, this one is a really cheap pencil. My other one is a very old pencil from years and years ago. Move them out of the way, actually. Right. So when it comes to creating a creature, you've got millions upon millions of animals to pick from slugs and snails to dolphins, whales. You've got birds. You've got mammals like lions. You've got, well, everything basically. Amoebas, go wild. So the only thing that stops you designing anything different is not looking far enough to find your creature. So in this case today, I've got a lioness. Is this a lioness? Actually, it might be the tiger. I can't remember which one. I've got a 3D rendering of a Rex skull. I've got a rendering of a sauropod skull. Not the best one in the world, but it does the job. And I've got all sorts of other little billy bobbies. And these are part of what inspires me to have a go at drawing. I've got a gorilla head and all sorts. Not a literal gorilla head, before anybody kicks off. So these are things that inspire me to create a different creature. And I can combine them with anything. So you could have a spider cross a cat. You can have a dog cross dinosaur. All that stops you from drawing is your imagination. So I'm just going to do some quick demos of how creativity can be sparked. So in this case, I'm going to use the lioness, tigress head. I can't honestly remember. And I'm going to do a very, very rough sketch. If you can get some books on animal anatomy, it will really, really, really help you understand the what and the why of the creature. Because if you understand the animal's purpose, you can then understand where it fits. So, for example, cats are predators. So how do they affect the world around them? What do they hunt? Do they have big teeth like saber-tooths? Do they have small teeth like domestic cats? How does this affect what they can hunt and eat? Do they have big claws? I mean, seriously, imagine a cat with velociraptor claws. So all I'm doing is just roughly mapping out bits and bobs. This is only a sketch, so nothing serious. My fuzzy was here. Right. So there's my rough cat head. Nothing special, nothing to write home about. But what happens if I start to merge it with parts of a dinosaur skull? Now, because these two animals are both meat eaters, it's actually not that much difference. But again, it depends on how far you push your anatomy. So both cats and nearly all theropod dinosaurs their eyes were looking forward. It's a trait of modern day predators. Predators look forward, prey tends to look around the sides. Have a look at rabbit eyes. So I'm going to do a bit of a bump here. I'm going to change the notes. I'm going to add in a bit more dinosaur anatomy. Now, what could I do here? I could change this. Add in some shading. Add in some scales. There I've changed a big cat to a more dinosaur creature. Just by changing a couple of little bits of the anatomy. Just going to grab a drink. Ooh. Still not over this cold. Right. I'm taking my darker pencils and I'm just going to go over the outline to emphasise it. So it's still got the same principles as the big cat. Forward facing eye. Good sized nose. Sniffing out all those bodies and the food. Ears. External. Listening for prey. Or possibly dangers. Powerful jaw for chomping down. A heavy set neck for those nice big muscles, which will help with the jaw. Just by adding a few scales here and there, it makes the creature look more armoured, which could indicate it's more aggressive or defensive. And there you go. So that's simply by crossing a big cat with a dinosaur. And you can find inspiration like that all around you. So even if you're, say, doing a really, really simple sketch of a deer, which in truth is like kind of like a blunt triangle, little line there, in its most simplest form. So you take a really simple deer shape and you just push a couple of bits of the anatomy. Maybe give it big fangs, like Chinese water deer have got big fangs. They give it a chunkier chin. Make the eyes smaller. Give it a slightly bigger jaw muscle. And then change the horn designs and the antler designs. And there you go, from a humble, simple deer, you changed it into something different. It's similar, but it's different. Maybe add some really long whiskers. And has this animal got lots and lots of fluff? Do the ears end up with slightly more point to them? Has it got a shaggier coat? All these tiny little things can completely change a design. Bring out to the camera so. Now, when it comes to creating the whole body of the animal, you've got so many animals out there that you can refer to. You've got bears, you've got crocodiles, you've got dogs, cats, you've got the deers, you've got cattle, sheep, camels. There's loads and loads of different animals that you can look at body shapes. Rhinos, elephants. Don't just stick with the basics. Try something new. Or take what you know and exaggerate it. So to draw a simple creature, start off with your beanie shapes. Use little lines. And just map in roughly with little beans, little ovals, where you want to put things. And always try and remember your key areas that in theory every animal should have. And these are the head, a neck, a shoulder blade, a limb or two coming off that, rib cage, somewhere to protect the organs, some form of lumbar, though not always. Certain dinosaurs didn't have any lumbar, proper lumbar, so their hips butted up against the rib cage, so they couldn't actually turn at all very well. Then you've got your hip, And depending on your animal design will depend on the shape of your hip. That's quite a big one. You've got limbs coming off that, and you've got a tail, or at least the start of a tail, like in humans. And from here, you can change it, you can add bits. But if you start off simply by doing your initial ideas, just literally as ovals, then it will help you get things where you want them. So you can map out if your animal's walking on 2 legs, 4 legs, 6 legs. You can get all of that mapping out done. And that will help you work out what creature you're going to design at the end of it. And remember that by changing any of these pieces of your design is going to change what the creature can do. So, for example, if I've drawn a creature with quite long legs, and I've done like that, doesn't matter, and then I give it a very shallow rib cage, animal's not going to be able to do much because it's not got enough capacity to take in a lot of air, so it's probably going to struggle to move around. Now, if I give it a nice deep rib cage and lots of lumbar and long limbs, that deep chest is going to mean lots of oxygen getting in there, so powering the blood, which is going to mean the animal could possibly run really fast. Now, depending on how much fat you put on the animal, is it going to be heavy or is it going to be thinly framed like a greyhound? That, again, will help define your creature. Does your creature walk on the 2 legs? Again, have a look at the hips in different birds and dinosaurs, and you'll see that hip shapes can be very, very different. Some animals have more domed hips. Some animals have more scoop-shaped hips. Again, this can define how the muscles attach, which means that the animal can have different power levels. So if you've got a short, little stubby animal, it's got little legs, and good chance it'll have a stubby tail. So you can have a squat animal. Or if you want to do something longer, but short-legged, see how that changes. So you've got the effect of the squash and the stretch. So all of this kind of comes together when you're designing a creature. It's always worth having a look, having a play, and seeing what shapes you can make. And remember, you've got your giraffe-type creatures. It's got a slightly sloping downward body. Hyenas, some of them also have this. Again, the depth of your rib cage is going to affect what the animal can do. So these are all things that are going to affect your animal. But definitely don't stick to just what you see every day. So if you see a sausage dog, sorry, I hate this cold. If you see a sausage dog and they're long, but they've got a deep chest, and they're quite fast, just dumpy little legs, they're quite fast. So have a think about how that could be with a longer neck or different shaped ears. And then you can create a different creature from that. And because you're using base anatomy of the sausage dog, it would be quite believable. So they tend to have long heads, short necks. So I'm going to elongate the neck. They have long bodies, but they have deep deep rib cages. And they often have stumpy little legs. And a little tail. So, how can you change that shape? They normally have triangular ears. Okay, so start with the head. They're a predator, so they're forward looking. What if they've got a longer nose? A more narrow face. And instead of the ears going down, what are the ears? Are up. Instead of a short neck, how about a longer neck? Still short little feet. Still that big, deep chest. Powerful back legs. Instead of that tiny tail, give them a longer tail. So just by making a couple of small changes, it's changed the design of the animal straight away. Now, we can change it even more, but still keeping the basic shape. So, coming back to the eye, going to keep that quite narrow eye. With that little spike on top. I'm going to come back up the skull. And I'm going to add a horn. And where I've got my ears, I'm going to keep my ears, but I'm bringing them in lower. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add extra ears. So instead of having 2 ears, I'm giving this animal 4 ears. Because Dachshunds hunt badgers. That's the role of the dog. The sausage dog is designed to go underground and keep a badger busy while the huntsmen dig it out. Yeah, it's not a pleasant thing, but that's what the dog is actually designed to do. They're actually quite a savage dog, not safe for children. So giving this animal 4 ears would work because that would help it hearing and picking up vibrations. Now, if I had one of the ears as a floppy pair, that would probably work even better. Again, there's freedom of design here. So this time I'm giving it defensive horns, because if it's going face first against something that's a lot bigger than it and a lot more powerful, it's going to need a little bit of armour and protection. So we'll add a couple of scoots to the front of the face. So this animal now is more designed to be defensive. The jaw I'm making a little bit more stronger. And protruding teeth, and really long whiskers. Again, whiskers are really good at picking up vibrations. So the creature's changed now from a dachshund to an animal that is designed more for underground. Now these ears will be able to fold in on themselves, so you'd have your ear which is open, and then they'll be able to fold close to stop any dirt getting in. Now long neck, we have some armoured scoots on to stop anything being able to grab the back of the neck, and a couple of defensive quills, just scattered odd shapes. So if you did bite it, you're going to get a bit of a painful mouth. On the front, we're going to have a toughened skin and slightly loose and flappy. So if you've had a look at pit dogs like pit bulls, mastiffs, that sort of, you notice they have a lot of loose folded skin often around the neck. This is designed for the fighting opponent to be able to grab onto that skin and not damage anything important underneath it. So kind of fake decoy. And that meant that the dog couldn't go straight into a chokehold because it is basically not grab the throat. So for the limbs, for the front limb, I'm still going to keep it short because you're good for digging. But I'm just going to make the muscles a bit more muscly. Let's see, a fascia on there. And I've elongated the toes so that there's basically more to be able to scoop out. And these toes will be webbed to, again, grab more dirt. Now the claws need to be quite heavy set and non-retractable. We're going to have a deep chest again, because this animal, if it's going underground, it's going to need to be possibly able to hold its breath for a while. And a long, slinky shape for squeezing and wiggling down different tunnels. And then these back legs need to be powerful to push the animal forward. So we've got big muscles. You know, I'm going to put even more muscle back here. Again, just making the toes slightly longer. Muscle there. Now, tail-wise, technically this animal wouldn't want a big tail. The reason is it's grabbable. So if you've got your creature and it's turned around in the burrow and it's got some it's got something coming after it, it's not going to want something that can be grabbed and yoinked and broken. One of the things I've noticed in with dog fights, quite often the tail's docked so they can't be broken, the ears are clipped so they can't be torn off, the skin around the throat, they breed to make them floppy, so that, again, minimum damage. So originally I was planning to have a thicker tail, a longer tail. But the more I think about it, the more I'm inclined to change the tail and actually have a little nubby tail. But instead of the skinny little wiggly thing that dachshunds tend to have, which I swear if they shake it too much they can break their own tails, I'm going to have something slightly thicker. And again with a bit of armour plating. And the reason I've gone for a thicker tail is it would still be able to wag back and forward, but also it would be strong enough to house a good amount of muscle and support the hip and the rest of the spine. So it would help power everything basically. So that's my next design, and that's how I've built up that animal. So from a dachshund, gone to something completely different. Oh, I tell you what, let me see if I've got. Yeah, right. Got some of these from Japan. Now, I've not ever used these before. Let's see. Let's try them. I've no idea how they work or if they're any good. But one way to find out. Right, scissors. If in doubt, get the scissors out. So that looks pretty fine. Let's try this one. Ooh, they're a very light pen. I was actually meant to be using these for a different project. Let's see what happens. It's got 2 chances. So what I'm going to do is ink in. Ooh, that is fine. Jeez. The design. Just see what happens. Ooh, I like that. It's definitely a nice feeling pen. It's kind of like a brush, but not a brush. Very smooth. Yeah, quite enjoying these. So I've given this animal quite a shaggy coat. And the reason for that is if it's a active hunting animal, to be bristly and spiky is not a bad thing. Again, it's textural. Not every animal might is going to like biting into something that's spiky. Now, of course, there's could be multiple fur variants of this. You could have a smooth coated, a wire hair coated. There's, again, your imagination. And a bit like modern Dachshunds, where there are different coats. There's long haired, there's silky, there's short. There's a wire haired. I don't see the wire haired as much. They always look so depressed. So instead of the creature being heavily armoured, I'm adding little scales in between. So the skin would be loose and flexing over the muscles. So if something did grab, it would just literally be grabbing onto just skin, nothing important. Again, this is something just to be conscientious when you're designing a creature. It's a nice feeling pens. Glad I got 2 packs. I'll drink. Just adding some little bits of armour over the toes, just in case they will be kind of latched onto. So I've not put as much over the shoulder or the hip because these are moving joints. And they need a lot more movement. I'm going to add an extra scale here and there, especially around this bit because you've got the lumbar there. So the animal needs to be able to twist and move. Just going to define a couple of areas. And that is a creature basically completed. So from the idea of a dachshund to making a couple of changes on the anatomy through to creating a different creature. We can still recognise parts of it as a dachshund, the sausage dog shaped body, the short limbs, but then you've added in, when you add in the extra bits, it becomes less of a dachshund and more of a brand new creature. And again, because the anatomy is near right, where it should be, it's a believable creature. So if I wanted to test how this animal would work, I could lower the head and do these little sketches again. Have a play around with the movement. Could this animal jump? So I can have a look at the more dynamic poses. How would this animal look from above? How wide are the shoulders? Does it have a narrow body? Does it taper? Put the head over here. So how does it look from above? How does it look when it's laid down? So that's sort of thing that I would then play around with, look at the feasibility of the animal. How plausible is it? And from there I can get creating, I can make adjustments, have a bit more fun, play around, make adjustments. And who knows? Maybe change those ears from the closed type ears to the floppy ears and maybe have a more droopy ear. But then if the animal's in conflict, then that could put it at risk. So it's little things. It depends on what your character is going to be doing. Is really going to depend on how they act and how they behave with the environment around them. So I'm just putting in some defining shadow. Well, there we go. So literally, I've had a look at the way that you can change your designs from turning a lioness big cat head into a more dragoness design. How to push the anatomy on a deer head through to looking at form, what helps make your character from the way they stand, how they move, and then taking a humble dachshund and turning it into something completely different. So I hope this has inspired you to have a go and create some different creatures of your own and enjoy doing it. That's half the fun, is enjoy creating. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. This isn't perfect for me. This is just a rough sketch. But it's having fun and learning as you go. So I hope this has inspired you to have a go. And until next time, all the best to everyone and happy drawing to you all.